The first night I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The silence wasn't normal silence. It was watching me. I had just moved to this trainee town on the outskirts. Not much going on around here, but the job at the supermarket seemed like a solid way to get by. The pay wasn't bad, and the work was simple enough. Stock shelves, clean, and help out the few customers who wandered in. But from the moment I set foot in the store, something was off. I can't explain it really. It was the kind of feeling you get when someone's staring at you, but when you look, there's nobody there. That was how it felt in this place. The supermarket itself was old, probably older than the town itself. The floors creaked underfoot, the lights flickered sometimes, and the aisles seemed a bit too narrow, like they were closing in on you. The fluorescent lights buzzed in the corners, casting an eerie glow on everything. The air was thick, as though it hadn't moved in years. I should have known. The first time I saw the sign for the job, it was weirdly faded, the letters on the paper curling at the edges, but I didn't think much of it at the time. A paycheck's a paycheck, right? The strange thing was that there weren't many people shopping at this supermarket. It was one of those places where if you needed something quick, you went in, grabbed it, and left. But sometimes I'd find myself working late, after the last customer had shuffled out the door. That's when the weirdness started. The store would empty, but the strange feeling in the air never did. It hung there, like a presence, watching. I first noticed it the second week of my shift. It was late, just before closing. The store was nearly empty, and the place was eerily quiet. The only sound was the hum of the ridge in the back. I was stocking some cans of beans when I heard the footsteps. I turned around, but there was nobody there, just the rustle of the air conditioner kicking on. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just the pipes or the wind. Then came the flickering. I was standing in the frozen foods aisle when the lights above me flickered. It wasn't the normal kind of flicker, like the kind you see when a bulb's about to burn out. This was different, like a stutter, and for a second, the entire aisle went dark. I froze. I didn't move a muscle. I was about to head to the back to tell the manager, but before I could, the lights blinked back on. I felt stupid for even worrying about it. I was new, maybe just jumpy. Still, the air felt thicker, like something was waiting for me to notice, to feel it. The manager, a quiet guy named John, hadn't seemed too interested in my concerns when I mentioned it. He just gave me a thin smile and said, "This place is old. Things like that happen sometimes." He didn't even seem to blink when he said it. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. The next night, though, something happened that I couldn't just ignore. I was near the front of the store when I saw a customer come in. He was tall, too tall, actually. His clothes were old-fashioned, like something out of the 50s. But what got me was his eyes. There was something wrong with them. They were wide open, unblinking, just staring. I couldn't take my eyes off him, though I didn't want to stare either. I tried to look away, but it was like he was pulling me in. He moved down the aisle, and I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. He never touched anything on the shelves. He just walked, slow and steady, his footsteps echoing too loudly in the silence. He stopped right at the end of the aisle and stood there, unmoving, for what felt like an eternity. I was frozen. I couldn't look away. And then, just like that, he turned and walked out, disappearing into the night without a word. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest. Was he real? Did I imagine that? I ran my hand through my hair, trying to shake the unease off, but I couldn't. The silence returned, but it wasn't the same. It was colder somehow. The hairs on my arms were standing up. I quickly finished my shift and left the store, promising myself I wouldn't think too much about it. But something was off about the place. I couldn't shake it. The store was in the middle of nowhere, a town that didn't see much traffic with no one around to help you if anything went wrong. It was just me and whatever, or whoever was lurking in the aisles. That night, when I got home, I took a long shower to try and wash off the unease that clung to me. It didn't work. The feeling stayed with me, gnawing at the back of my mind. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, but deep down, I knew I hadn't imagined him. I hadn't imagined him. The store had secrets. I could feel it in my bones, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to uncover them.
It wasn't much of a town, really. Just a few scattered houses and a couple of businesses. One of those places where the people know your name but probably wouldn't care to. I needed a job, though, so when I saw the Help Wanted sign hanging in the dusty window of the supermarket, I didn't hesitate. It was a quiet job, just stocking shelves and ringing up a few customers every day. Perfect for someone trying to get their feet on the ground. The supermarket was old. Too old, really. The floors were cracked in places, and the lights flickered whenever the wind picked up outside. There were always strange sounds. The hum of the refrigerators in the back, the clicking of the air conditioning unit, and the low, almost imperceptible thud of things shifting on the shelves when no one was around. When I first started, it seemed harmless enough. Just a quiet store with the usual grocery items. The place looked like it hadn't been renovated in years. Most of the shelves were a little crooked, and the aisles were narrow, almost too narrow for the carts. But everything was organized, and it seemed well kept. I figured it had just been around a while, and that was part of its charm. I met the manager, John, on my first day. He was an older guy, probably in his 50s, with thick glasses and a tired look in his eyes. He didn't say much, just handed me my apron and pointed me toward the stockroom. "Don't work past midnight," he said, "and don't go in the back room after hours. The rest is fine. Just keep things clean and don't mess with the customers." I thought his rules were odd, but I figured it was just his way of running things. I didn't ask many questions, just nodded and got to work. The first few days were normal. I was mostly by myself, working late into the night when the store was almost empty. Sometimes a few straggler customers would come in, but they always left quickly, as if they had something else to do. I didn't think much of it. This was a quiet town, and the store felt like it was part of that. Sleepy, uneventful, forgotten by time. But even on the first night, something didn't feel quite right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I started noticing little things, like how the shelves always seemed to be restocked at the exact same spots every morning, even if I was sure I hadn't touched them. Or how the aisles would shift slightly, making it feel like the layout was never quite the same each time I walked through. The customers, too. They didn't seem like regular shoppers. They moved too quickly, too mechanically, and always avoided eye contact. Their faces, pale, emotionless, stayed focused on the items in front of them as if they didn't even notice I was there. They didn't speak, not a word, not even a hello. It was unsettling. I brushed it off at first, chalking it up to the quiet nature of the town and the strange old building. Maybe it was just me, maybe I was tired, but there was a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, a feeling that the store, the customers, and even the manager were hiding something from me. That feeling intensified on the third day. I was shelving cans of soup near the back of the store when I noticed something odd. The lights flickered again, only this time, the flicker lasted longer. I stood frozen, staring at the ceiling. The lights had gone out entirely for a moment. The cold air from the refrigerators hummed loudly as the store went dark. My heart thudded in my chest. I told myself to relax, that it was just a power surge. But then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. I turned to see a tall figure at the end of the aisle, just standing there. It was a customer. At least I thought it was. I could see his face from where I stood. His skin was pale, almost unnaturally so. And his eyes, they didn't move. His gaze was locked on me, unblinking. And for a moment I thought I saw a flash of something strange, something dark behind those eyes. Before I could speak, the lights flickered back on. The customer was gone. I stood there, heart racing, trying to convince myself it was nothing. I was probably just seeing things, right? I went back to my task, but the unease lingered. Something felt wrong about this place, like it was alive in a way I couldn't explain. It was like the building itself was watching me. Later that night, I told John about the lights flickering. He just nodded and said, "Old building, happens all the time." He didn't even look up from his work. His voice sounded distant, as if he wasn't really paying attention. And then, the first of the rules came. "Don't work past midnight," he said. "The store's off limits after that. You can leave, but don't stay inside once the clock strikes 12. I didn't question it. At the time, I thought it was just a way to keep things simple. But now that I think about it, those words have stuck with me. The store was off limits after midnight. Why? The next few days were the same. Quiet, uneventful. But every time I worked late, something felt different. The air would grow colder, and I'd find myself glancing over my shoulder more often. The customers would shuffle past, their eyes never meeting mine. It was like they were drawn to something. Drawn to the shelves, to the aisles, to the store itself. Something about them made me feel like they weren't really human. And then there was the back room. The back room was off limits after hours, too. John never explained why, just told me to stay away from it. But one night, after everyone had left, I couldn't help but feel curious. I stood outside the door, staring at the dim light flickering from inside, and wondered what was behind it. What was so important that John didn't want me to see? But for now, I would follow the rules. I didn't want to push my luck. I'd only just started working here, and I wasn't about to ruin it all by breaking some unspoken rule. But little did I know, the rules were the least of my worries.
The strange rules began to feel less like safety precautions and more like chains, locking me into something far beyond my understanding. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew something was seriously wrong. It wasn't just the flickering lights or the unsettling silence, it was the way the store itself seemed to operate, as if it had a life of its own. The layout was off. You ever walk into a room and for a second you swear you saw something move in the corner of your eye? That's how it felt in the supermarket. It wasn't just the shelves or the aisles. It was the air, the atmosphere. Something was always there, but not visible. And then there were the customers. Every day they'd shuffle in, not a word exchanged between them or anyone else. They moved like clockwork, their feet shuffling along the linoleum floor without hesitation. Their eyes were locked on the shelves in front of them, never blinking, never shifting. No one ever made a sound, not a cough, not a greeting. It was as though they didn't see me, or maybe they weren't even aware of me at all. It was strange, unsettling, but what really threw me off was how they never seemed to pick anything up. They'd stand in front of a shelf, staring at the same items for minutes, then move on without a single touch. I've worked retail before, and I know that's not how customers shop. People pick up things, examine them, make decisions. But these people, they didn't seem to do anything. They just existed in the store. And every time I tried to speak to them, anything, a greeting, a simple, "Can I help you?" they ignored me. It was like they were in a trance, walking without a purpose. One evening, after my shift had already stretched into the late hours, I was restocking the cleaning aisle when one of them caught my eye. It was a man, tall and thin, almost too thin.
His clothes were outdated, like something from the 70s, faded denim jeans and a wrinkled shirt. But what caught my attention more than his clothes was the way he moved. It was so rigid, mechanical almost. His arms hung at his sides, not swinging as he walked, just straight. And his eyes, they were wide open, wide, unblinking eyes that stared right through me, like they weren't even seeing me at all. My throat went dry. I froze, my body instinctively stepping back. But he didn't blink. He didn't even look at me. Then, the strangest thing happened. Without any warning, he simply turned around and started walking the other way. It wasn't a fast turn. It was slow, deliberate, the way someone would move if they were being controlled. My heart started to race as I tried to shake off the chill creeping down my spine. I shouldn't have followed him, I know that now, but my feet carried me before my mind could process it. I stepped into the aisle where he had gone, but by the time I reached the end, he was gone, vanished. No sign of him, not even a trace. I stood there for a moment, staring down the aisle. The shelves were untouched, no footsteps, nothing. But there was a feeling, a presence, like someone was still standing there, just out of sight. My heart beat faster, and I couldn't tell if it was from fear or something else. I thought I saw movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned, nothing was there. The silence felt heavier, almost suffocating. That's when I heard it. A faint whisper, a voice, just on the edge of hearing. I turned quickly, but again, I saw nothing. My skin prickled as the temperature in the store seemed to drop. The whisper came again, this time louder, but still unintelligible. It was as though the air itself was speaking, and the voice was too close, too real to ignore. I quickly finished my shift, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. The whole time, I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting something to jump out from behind the aisles, but there was nothing. No one else seemed to notice how strange it was. The manager, John, was already in the back, counting inventory, his back turned to me. He didn't hear the whispers, didn't see the strange things I had just witnessed. He simply went about his work, as though it was any other day. When I tried to bring it up to him, he just nodded, distracted, barely meeting my gaze. "The store is old," he said again, in that same flat, disinterested tone. "It's not all that unusual, just part of the charm, I guess." But charm? Charm doesn't feel like a constant weight on your chest. Charm doesn't make your skin crawl, doesn't make you want to leave but feel as if you can't. There was something more to this place, something lurking beneath the surface, just waiting for someone to notice. And then came the rules. One by one, John started laying them for me, casual as ever, as though they were just part of the job. "Don't speak to the customers unless they speak to you first," he said. "Don't stay past midnight, and whatever you do, don't go near the back room after hours. It's not safe." At first, I thought it was just his way of managing the place, but the more he said them, the more they felt like commands, like things I should be afraid to break. "Don't work past midnight," he repeated. "The store doesn't like it when you do." There was something about the way he said that last part that made my blood run cold. The store doesn't like it. The store. Not the building, not the supermarket. The store. As if the place itself were alive, as if it had its own will. I should have questioned it. I should have laughed it off as some old superstition. But the fear I felt in that moment, it wasn't like anything I had ever known. Something in the air seemed to thicken, something I couldn't explain. I nodded along with his words, trying to act normal, to play along. But deep down, I was terrified. Terrified that there was something more to these rules than just routine. That maybe, just maybe, they weren't just rules. They were warnings. Warnings I would have to follow if I wanted to make it out. I left the store that night, my mind buzzing with uncertainty. Something wasn't right. I could feel it now, clearer than ever. The store wasn't just an old building. It was a trap. And the rules? They weren't there to protect me. They were there to keep me in line.
As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was waiting for me, just beyond the reach of my sight. But it wasn't until later that night, when I tried to sleep, that I understood. The store wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it was hungry.